Okay, ready to dive in. Today, we're tackling success, and not just like the surface level, we're going deep.
Deep dive time.
Exactly. And our guide, Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers.
Always a good one.
Right. It really flips the script on how we think about reaching those top tiers. Like, forget the lone genius grinding away solo, Gladwell saying, nope, there's way more to it.
Yeah, way more. It's talent, hard work, for sure. But then it's also like when you were born, your background, the sheer luck of opportunity.
You're totally right. He's like, it takes a village to raise a success story.
Exactly. And one of the things he breaks down so well is that lone genius myth.
Yeah, and he does it by comparing some really interesting people.
Oh, yeah, like who?
Well, he looks at Christopher Langan, who's got like this crazy high IQ,
Oh, I remember him.
and then Robert Oppenheimer, the guy behind the Manhattan Project.
Okay, so wildly different fields.
Totally, but both super accomplished in their own ways.
Right. But what's Gladwell's point with them?
So Langan, on paper, seems like, destined for huge success. But things didn't really pan out that way for him.
Ah, okay, so there's a twist.
Big time. And that's where Gladwell is like, hold up, having a brilliant mind isn't the whole story.
Makes sense. There's got to be more to it.
Exactly. So Langan, even with that sky-high IQ, was missing something Gladwell calls practical intelligence. It's like the social skills, the savvy to actually make your way in the world.
Oh, I get it. Like street smarts on top of book smarts.
Exactly. And Oppenheimer, he had that in spades. He could charm anyone, persuade, work a room like nobody's business. And that, what Gladwell calls social savvy, played a huge role in his success.
Interesting. So it's not enough to just be brilliant. You've got to know how to apply it, how to connect.
You got it. It's like all those opportunities that come your way, you need those skills to actually grab them.
Makes sense. And I feel like this is where sociologist Annette Lareau's work comes in.
But she studied how different parenting styles actually affect, how successful kids become later on.
Okay, I'm super curious about this. What did she find?
So she noticed these two main approaches: concerted cultivation, which is more common in middle and upper class families, and then there's
Accomplishment of natural growth.
yes, that one's often seen in working class families, and the difference is pretty stark.
So how do these styles actually play out?
Well, kids raised with that concerted cultivation, they're encouraged to question authority, speak their minds, negotiate for what they want. Lareau has some really great examples.
Like what? I'm all ears.
Okay, so imagine this. These kids, they're more likely to question their doctor during a checkup or even debate a grade with their teacher.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's different.
Right, it's like their upbringing is almost like a training ground for those make-or-break moments when you got to stand up for yourself, make a strong case. They're totally comfortable engaging with, people in authority.
That's huge. In any field, that can make a world of difference.
Totally. And that takes us to another big idea from Gladwell: cultural legacies.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about those.
So think about it like the beliefs, the practices that get passed down through generations. That stuff can have a massive impact on someone's success. It shapes our work ethic, our values, even the opportunities we go after.
It's like shaping who we are without us even realizing it.
Exactly. Like an invisible hand, sometimes guiding us toward success, sometimes not. And to show this, Gladwell takes us through some fascinating stories, like Joe Flom, this lawyer who became incredibly successful.
Okay, what's his story?
Now, it might sound like the classic, rags to riches tale, but Gladwell digs deeper. He shows how Flom's success was really tied to, his cultural background and even some random historical events.
Like what?
So, get this. Being born in the 1930s during what Gladwell calls a demographic trough, that turned out to be a huge advantage for Flom.
A demographic trough. What's that?
It basically means fewer babies were born then, so less competition for him in schools, jobs, everything. It's like he got a head start before the race even began.
Wow, that's wild, like catching the perfect wave. But what about his background? You said that played a role too.
Oh, absolutely. His family were Jewish immigrants. They instilled in him this super strong work ethic, and they had specialized skills in areas like corporate litigation, which wasn't exactly the hot legal field back then.
So not exactly the obvious path to success. I'm guessing that changes, though.
You're right on the money. That's where things get interesting. Those skills that, nobody wanted before. They became super in demand in the 1970s when hostile takeovers became a big thing. And Flom and his firm, They'd been focusing on this niche area, so suddenly they were the go-to experts.
Talk about perfect timing. Like they were training for a marathon nobody knew was happening, and then boom, they're the only ones ready to run. But was this just a one-off, or is Gladwell saying there's something bigger here?
He's definitely saying it wasn't just a fluke. Lots of Jewish lawyers in New York at that time found success in similar ways. They specialized in stuff other people overlooked, and then, bam, those areas blew up in popularity.
It really shows how, cultural legacies and historical timing can come together to create these insane opportunities. And it makes you think maybe success comes from, focusing on what other people dismiss, seeing value where others don't.
100%. And that idea of finding meaning in the unexpected. That comes up in Gladwell's story about the Borgenichts, too. They were a Jewish immigrant family who found success in New York's garment industry. And get this, they genuinely loved what they did.
Really, the garment industry isn't exactly known for being like a worker's paradise. What made it different for them?
That's what Gladwell breaks down. He argues their work gave them three key things. One, autonomy. They had control over their own work. Two, complexity. It challenged them mentally. And three, a clear connection between effort and reward. They could directly see the results of their hard work.
He calls these the ingredients for meaningful work. Right? It makes you stop and think, how many of us can honestly say our jobs tick those boxes?
Right. It's a big question. And you know what's interesting? Gladwell doesn't just stick to individual stories. He also looks at how broader cultural differences can actually affect success, even getting into stuff like aviation safety.
Whoa, that's a jump. How does that tie in?
So he examines these high rates of plane crashes that Korean Air had in the 1990s. And this is where things get really fascinating. He connects those crashes to this idea called the Power Distance Index, or PDI. It measures how much a culture values and respects authority figures.
Okay. And where does Korean culture fall on that?
Well, they've got a high PDI, meaning there's this deep respect for authority, almost like built into their
Yeah,
culture.
I can see where this is going. That could be a problem in a high pressure situation like flying a plane.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Gladwell argues that because of this high PDI, junior pilots might not speak up, even in dangerous situations, because they're hesitant to question their superiors.
Wow. So you're saying cultural legacies can actually have both positive and negative sides?
Totally. And we see that with, like, the example of rice paddy culture and how it ties to strong math skills.
Wait, rice paddies and math, how does that work?
It's wild, right? Gladwell looks at this idea that Asian cultures, especially those with a history of rice paddy farming, might have, like, a built-in advantage when it comes to math.
Okay, I'm officially lost.
So rice cultivation, it demands a certain way of thinking. It needs careful planning, attention to detail, a deep understanding of, like, complex systems. And Gladwell's suggesting that centuries of this type of farming might have actually shaped their brains in a way that makes them better at math.
Huh. That's fascinating. Is there any research to back that up?
He actually points to some research by psychologist James Flynn. He studied Chinese immigrants and their success in math. And what he found was even those who came from disadvantaged backgrounds still excelled.
So even without, the best resources or opportunities, they were still killing it in math.
Exactly. And Gladwell's suggesting this could be partly because of that rice paddy legacy. It's like those centuries of farming ingrained a certain way of thinking that's super applicable to math.
Okay, that's seriously mind-blowing. But does Gladwell just, theorize about all this, or does he bring it back down to earth a bit?
Oh, he definitely does. He gets personal, sharing this powerful story about his own mother's journey to success in Jamaica. And let me tell you, her story is full of unexpected twists and turns. It really highlights how much chance, historical timing, and family and cultural legacy can shape a life.
Ooh, I'm ready for the story. Hit me with it.
All right, so buckle up. We're going to Jamaica. It all starts with the 1937 riots, which, surprisingly, actually led to more opportunities for education.
Wait, seriously, how did that happen?
It's wild, right? Sometimes even what seems like a negative event can have unexpected positive outcomes. If those riots hadn't happened, who knows if Gladwell's mom would have the same chances to go to school. It's like these historical chain reactions that we totally miss sometimes.
Totally. But it wasn't just the riots, right? You mentioned some other factors, too.
Oh yeah, there's more. So get this. A fellow student actually gives up her scholarship, and that opens the door for Gladwell's mom to go to this prestigious high school.
Wow. That's some serious luck. But I bet there's more to it than just that, right?
You know it.
Great.
Gladwell really emphasizes the role of his grandmother, Daisy Nation. She was incredibly determined to see her daughters succeed.
What did she do?
She went all out. She made sure they had the best resources, even hired a tutor to help them prep for exams.
She sounds amazing. That kind of support can make a world of difference, especially when you're up against challenges. It shows how individual effort, combined with a strong family network, can really push someone forward. It's a great reminder that success isn't just a solo mission. We're all influenced by the people around us, by those who believe in us and invest in our potential. And when you mix that support with the right opportunities, magic can happen.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive into outliers, what are the big takeaways? I think it's safe to say that success is way more complex than we often think. It's not just about being smart or working hard. It's about this whole web of things, where you come from, the timing of your life, the chances you get, and even the cultural legacies you inherit.
It really flips that pull yourself up by your bootstraps idea on its head, doesn't it? The reality is, none of us succeed alone. We're all shaped by our backgrounds, the opportunities we get, and yeah, sometimes plain old luck.
It really makes you wonder, what are the hidden advantages or maybe even disadvantages that have shaped our own lives? Things we might not even realize.
Right, and it challenges us to be more aware of those forces, to see how they affect not just us, but everyone around us too.
So as we wrap up, here's something to think about. Remember Gladwell's idea of meaningful work, the kind that gives you autonomy, challenges you, and lets you directly see the results of your effort. Think about your own work. Does it fit that description?
Ooh, that's a good one. Because maybe, just maybe, finding that kind of work is the key to not just achieving success, but also feeling truly fulfilled along the way.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That's a perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into Outliers. It's been a wild ride.
Absolutely. And to all you listeners out there, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.
See you then.
It's crazy how something like, being born when there are fewer babies around can have such a big impact on your whole life.
Right. It's like the universe gave him a free pass. Like, here's less competition. Go make something of yourself.
Exactly. And then you layer on his family background. Those Jewish immigrant roots really shaped him.
Big time. That strong work ethic.
Yeah.
Definitely came from his family. And remember, they had those specialized skills, too, like corporate litigation.
Yeah, which wasn't exactly the hot legal ticket back then.
Nope, not at all.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets interesting. Those skills that nobody wanted, they became super valuable in the 1970s when hostile takeovers became like the thing in the corporate world.
And Flom and his firm, they were ready.
Oh yeah, totally prepared. They'd been focusing on this niche area, so suddenly they were the experts everyone needed.
It's like, talk about being in the right place at the right time. They were playing the long game without even knowing it.
And Gladwell makes it clear this wasn't just some random fluke.
Oh yeah, it was a pattern.
Exactly. A whole bunch of Jewish lawyers in New York found success in similar ways back then,
Yeah.
specializing in things other people didn't want, and then bam, those areas became huge.
It really shows how these cultural legacies and historical timing can collide and create these insane opportunities.
Totally. And it makes you think maybe success comes from looking at things differently, finding value where other people don't.
100%. Seeing the potential that everyone else misses.
Right. And that idea of finding meaning in unexpected places, that comes up in Gladwell's story about the Borgenics, too. They were a Jewish immigrant family who found success in, of all places, New York's garment industry.
Okay, that's interesting. The garment industry isn't exactly known for being the most fulfilling line of work.
You're telling me? But these guys, they actually loved what they did.
Really? That's wild. Why? What was so special about it?
Gladwell breaks it down. He says their work gave them three key things: autonomy, complexity, and a connection between effort and reward.
Okay, break that down for me.
So autonomy meant they had control over their own work. Complexity kept them mentally stimulated, challenged them, and the connection between effort and reward. They could see the direct impact of their hard work.
He calls that meaningful work, right? Makes you think about your own job. Does my work tick those boxes?
But a big question. And you know what's wild? Gladwell doesn't just stick to these individual stories. He also looks at how, broader cultural differences can actually impact success.
Okay, now that's interesting. How does he make that connection?
Well, he gets into some pretty surprising areas like aviation safety.
Aviation safety. Wow. Okay, I did not see that coming.
Right. He examines those high rates of plane crashes that Korean Air had in the 1990s. And this is where it gets really fascinating. He links those crashes to something called the Power Distance Index, or PDI.
PDI, what's that all about?
So it measures how much a culture values and respects authority figures. And get this, Korean culture has a high PDI, meaning there's this deep-seated respect for authority.
Okay, I see where this is going. In a cockpit, that could be a real issue.
Exactly. You've got junior pilots who might be hesitant to question their superiors, even in dangerous situations, because of that cultural respect for authority.
So cultural legacies can have a downside.
Absolutely. And it's not just about downsides. We see how they can be beneficial too, like with the example of rice paddy culture and its connection to strong math skills.
Rice paddies and math. Okay, you're going to have to explain that one.
It's pretty mind-blowing, right? Gladwell explores this idea that Asian cultures, especially those with a long history of rice paddy farming, might have like a built-in advantage when it comes to math.
Interesting, but why? What's the link?
So rice cultivation, it demands a specific kind of thinking. It involves meticulous planning, attention to detail, and understanding complex systems. And Gladwell suggests that centuries of this type of farming might have actually shaped their brains to be better at math.
Huh, that's a cool theory. But is there any evidence to support it?
He points to research by psychologist James Flynn, who studied Chinese immigrants and how well they did in math. And guess what? Even those who came from disadvantaged backgrounds still excelled.
So even without the best resources or opportunities, they were still crushing it in math.
Exactly. And Gladwell suggests that this could be, at least in part, due to that legacy of rice paddy cultivation. It's like all those years of farming ingrained a way of thinking that just happens to be really useful for math.
Okay, that's fascinating. I love how Gladwell brings in all these different perspectives.
Me too. He's a master at connecting the dots. But he doesn't just theorize about all of this. He gets personal and shares a really powerful story about his own mother's path to success in Jamaica.
Oh, wow. I'm definitely intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, her story is full of unexpected twists and turns. It really highlights how much chance, historical timing, family, and cultural legacies can shape a life.
Sounds like a must-hear. Take us to Jamaica.
All right, so we're going back in time to the 1937 riots in Jamaica, which, believe it or not, actually ended up creating more opportunities for education.
Wait, really? How did that happen?
It's crazy, right? Sometimes what seems like a bad thing can lead to something good. If those riots hadn't happened, who knows if Gladwell's mom would have had the same chances to get an education. It's like those historical domino effects we don't always see.
Yeah, it's like those historical chain reactions. You never know what's going to set things in motion.
Totally. But it wasn't just the riots. There's this other incredible twist of fate. A fellow student gives up her scholarship, which opens the door for Gladwell's mom to attend this prestigious high school.
Wow, talk about a lucky break. But I'm guessing it wasn't all just chance.
You're right on the money. Gladwell really emphasizes his grandmother's role in all of this. Daisy Nation, she was a force. She was determined to see her daughters succeed no matter what.
What did she do? Was she like a super involved parent?
Oh yeah, she went above and beyond. Made sure they had the best resources, even hired a tutor to help them get ready for exams.
Wow, she sounds amazing. That kind of unwavering support, it can make all the difference, especially when things get tough. It shows how important individual effort is, but also how crucial it is to have a strong support system, that family network that's got your back.
You hit the nail on the head. It's a powerful reminder that success isn't just a solo journey. We're all influenced by the people around us, by those who believe in us and push us to be our best. And when that support aligns with the right opportunities, amazing things can happen.
Absolutely. So after this deep dive into Outliers, what's the big takeaway?
It's safe to say that success is way more intricate than we often assume. It's not just about raw talent or hard work. It's this whole web of factors. Your background, your timing, the breaks you get, even those cultural legacies you inherit.
It really challenges that whole pull yourself up by your bootstraps narrative, doesn't it? Because in reality, none of us succeed in isolation. We're all shaped by our past, the opportunities that come our way, and yeah, sometimes just plain old luck.
It makes you think about all the hidden advantages and disadvantages that have shaped our own lives, right? Things we might not even be aware of.
It's a real eye-opener.
Yeah.
And it challenges us to be more mindful of those forces, to recognize how they impact not just our own journeys, but the journeys of everyone around us.
Right. And to appreciate the complexity of success. So as we wrap up, here's a final thought to chew on. Remember Gladwell's idea of meaningful work, the kind that gives you autonomy, challenges you, and lets you directly see the impact of what you do. Think about your own work. Does it fit that description? Because maybe, just maybe, finding that kind of work is the key to not just achieving success, but also finding genuine fulfillment along the way.
It's a great question to ponder. And I think it's the perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into Outliers. It's been a fascinating exploration.
Absolutely. And to all our listeners out there, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.